there, and welcome to the Drax Files Radio Hour with Jo Yardley. Happy 2016. We're not quite back from our extended vacation that we frankly deserve, but we will bring you today the full unedited audio of the Lab Chat Returns episode, the second live Lab Chat that went down yesterday, where people from all over the grid were able to ask Linden Lab CEO Ebbe Altberg questions that were selected by a committee, and what a show it was. Moderated by Jo Yardley, our own Jo Yardley, and Safia Wittershins from Designing Worlds and Prim Perfect and all these other very prolific, enormous... I can't even finish that sentence. Safia Wittershins, a media mogul if there ever was one in Second Life. Anyway, I'm not going to blabber on. I'm actually on my way to the Sundance Film Festival in real life. And I have my mobile recording device, and I will really pester every VR person that I meet there. There is over 30 VR exhibits. I will try them. I will talk to people about it, and I will bring you guys this audio. Dear listener, thank you for supporting the show. I hope you understand that we needed a little break. And, I'm looking here at the microphone because this is a brand new studio as well. So for 2016, lots of stuff is planned. A lot of stuff is already in the can. The show will resume with Jo and myself on February 5th. So from then on, we'll go until our summer break without any break. Every week, a new show. And now, without any further ado, Lab Chat audio. Very soon, they'll push out a video. I don't know when, but we'll link to it, of course. Might take a couple of weeks to edit it. But here's Lab Chat with Ebbe Altberg, moderated by Jo Yardley and Safia Wittershins. Enjoy.
Hello and welcome to the second episode of Lab Chat, coming to you from the LEA Theatre in Second Life. I'm Jo Yardley.
And I'm Safia Wittershins, and we're here today to put your questions to the CEO of Linden Lab, the company behind Second Life and the new Sansar project.
And Ebbe joins us here today. Welcome to the show, Ebbe.
Hello. Great to be here again.
It's great to have you.
Yeah.
Now, before we get to the main part of the show today, I'd like to tell everyone a little about the venue we're filming in. This is the LEA Theatre, and it's part of the Linden Endowment for the Arts Regions. It's a lab-donated estate that's managed by residents for the promotion and development of the arts in Second Life. There are 29 regions in total, of which 20 host artists in residence, 6-month-long programs that give artists the opportunity to develop region-wide projects and installations. The other 9 contain a sandbox, a welcome centre, a weekly photo hunt, this theatre, which is actually on 4 different regions, and a variety of more community-based installations which have a 3-month tenure. There's always something happening or to be explored on the Linden Endowment for the Arts. Just opening the world map and choosing an LEA group of regions will take you somewhere fascinating, and I hope people watching here today will take the opportunity to explore after the programme. But now, back to the business of the show.
These questions have been asked by the residents of Second Life in a special forum on the Second Life website. We invited the questioners to join us on the show, but unfortunately none of them were available to appear live. We hope we'll have questioners in some of our future episodes.
There were 80 questions asked in the forum about Second Life and Sansar, and sadly we'll only have time on the show for a fraction of those. So we're talking to the lab about ways in which some of the other questions can be answered.
And what we have done is group together questions that we felt were closely related to explore topics more fully. You can read all the questions in full on the forums.
The questions on this show were selected by the whole Lab Chat team. During the show, if you have any questions, type them in chat and we'll try to ask them if we have time.
So, here we go. We're going to start with some questions concerning Second Life. we've had a couple of questions regarding the new project Bento. Devin Vaughan asks, how will creators make poses and animations for the new bones? Wings, fingers, facial expressions, etc. He notes that in the past, on the Second Life wiki, there was a downloadable figure rated for poser. There are also programs like Graphimator, or however you pronounce that. What tools will creators have for Bento to make content? And he also wonders, will there be any in-world tools for Bento, for pose and animation creation? And also, will animations for Bento have the ability to animate or pose separately? For example, a Bento facial smile that affects no other body part, or a wing animation that only animates the wings, a finger pose that only poses the fingers, etc. And also, will pose animations for Bento have the options for full body animation? And NVZN asks, in relation to that, would it be possible to record face-hand performances on the server side to store as a reusable animations without the need to use a third-party recording tool? Being able to record a performance in-world and in context is key.
Wow.
That's a good one, isn't it?
Yeah, we thought we'd start with the easy one.
That was a mouthful.
I'm gasping for breath now.
Well, so let's start with tools. You will be able to use the similar tools people have used, external tools. We've been working with Avastar and MayaStar from the beginning of early on in the project. So those tools will be ready as Bento. Well, they're ready now, and will continue to work with us as Bento sort of takes its final shape. So you can basically use similar tools you've used to date. There's a question about whether you can on the wiki download for Bento. It's already on the wiki now, and it'll obviously continue to update as the Bento project progresses and as changes are made. So more complete information will be on the wiki as changes are finalized. In-world tools, no current plans. If we make new sort of default avatars that take advantage of Bento, then we might make it so that you can slider control sort of whatever new bones that we introduce into those default avatars. But there's nothing specifically planned there yet. First step is to just actually get Bento to final state. There's been questions and that I have in my notes here that, Jo, you asked so much there I couldn't keep up. But
it's what I do.
Like, there's been questions about translation of bones, and originally that was disabled because it caused various bugs and side effects. For now, it's been re-enabled, and creators seem quite excited about that. But that means we actually have to chug through some of the implications of that, including bugs and potentially sort of some content breaking issues. So I don't know if the team has finalized a decision on whether that can work out. The intent of the team is to make it work, and that's why they re-enabled the translation of bones. But so hopefully we can get that figured out. But Bento is still in progress. And it will take as long as it will take to get it to a good state. But quite exciting. Oh, what did I now miss from what you said, Jo? Did I not answer everything?
Well, there was a question about being able to record them. You can make an animation, then record it, so you can use it as an inward performance. So I assume that they mean that you create this entire Bento animation for a dance, for instance, and then record it so you can play it, just like we do now with animations. If I understood correctly.
I don't know that there would be any difference from what you can do today. So
It will carry on.
Pretty much everything else remains the same, if you will. It's just so, yeah.
One bit that was asked was, will they have the ability to animate or pose separately? The facial smile that affects no other body part. And I know that I have long wanted one casually raised eyebrow.
I actually don't know. I would have to ask someone. I'll see if someone answers here on my private Slack channel.
Okay.
I would a cynical frown.
Yeah. I don't know enough about that.
Okay.
So we have to take that offline.
I think that's given lots of people things to think about, which is great.
Yeah, we've already seen some really fascinating work by people. And more keeps happening as people understand how to take advantage of this, and as we fix bugs and make things work right, and the tools come along with it, then it's going to be a lot of interesting, creative experiences out there.
It's going to be wonderful. I'm really excited about it, and the filmmaking possibilities it offers.
Oh yeah, I mean, you're going to be able to do some really cool filmmaking. Yeah.
Well, let's move on to the next question. The recent problems with the grid have raised a few questions about the best way to inform users of problems. We've had questions on this from Inara Pay and Crap Mariner. Inara says, up until a few years ago, if there were serious problems occurring with any of the Second Life services, the lab would issue an in-world warning to residents, advising them to refrain from actions which might result in inventory loss, account balance errors, etc., providing those logged in with the most direct means of knowing when problems were occurring. Given the events of the 9th to the 10th of February and similar events, could the lab look again at re-implementing these advisories to users rather than relying on us to keep one eye on the grid status page when in world? And Inara then refers us to a JIRA about this, number VWR20081. And Crap points out, if someone is going full dive, they're not going to be checking Twitter or the grid status blog. And if they're already logged in, they're not going to see a warning that only appears on the login screen.
Yeah, so the team talked a little bit about this to keep me informed about what we could do here. And Oz made the point that as soon as you want to do something in world to notify people, you got to make sure that you're not dependent on potentially the parts that are actually broken. So the nice thing about having a status outside of the viewer or in world is that you can sort of mostly isolate those two channels of communication completely. So if Second Life has an issue, you can still get notifications out, which may not be true if you're trying to notify in world. A lot of issues, not a lot of issues, but the recent issues were, our Amazon had issues with their networking, and that would have potentially completely made it impossible for us to actually communicate through the client. So I don't know how high of a priority the team can make this effort to try and do some in-world notifications of issues. Usually the team tries to focus more on making sure there are no issues. So I can't promise anything in world, but Oz says it's the team will noodle on it.
Oh dear.
I tend to find I get my warnings from kitty cats. I'm a member of the kitty cats groups because I'm, of course, a cat lady, and they're very good at sending out warnings. So.
Yeah, I'm one of those people who doesn't notice there's anything wrong until it's too late. So, because I am in too deep, as someone said. So it would be nice to have as many warnings as possible. Anyway, Next
And the
question.
timing of getting
sorry.
these out can be tricky too, because usually if something goes wrong, the team, will focus their energies on solving what's wrong. And depending on what time of night, the amount of staff you have to just try and dig in to solve the problem, which sometimes can make it difficult to, at the same time communicate clearly about the state of things. But we'll think of ways to be more informative about issues. But again, not sure what we could do and when.
Understood. Right, the next question. We've had two very similar questions about credit processing, something that I've been talking about a lot as well. One from Asher Constantine and one from Alexis de Cure. I hope I pronounced that right. I think I'm considering it to be French. Asher says, a few times earlier last year, you've mentioned the possibility of faster credit processing, sometimes even on the same day. Is there an update on whether that still is going to happen and when? And would this also apply to PayPal?
PayPal is sort of an independent thing. It's mostly, we take, right now, all requests goes through, I think it's about a 4-day waiting period for us to make sure that it's completely legit to make that payment. And we've come a long way in automatically trying to determine whether a payment request can just pass on through without any sort of human inspection or intervention. Lots of rules that need to go into place. There are certain amounts, or sometimes someone will trip a threshold that needs some additional information, and we got to make sure that those are cleared away. The compliance team, we do have this automated process in place, and a high percentage of all requests go through what we call auto-approved. The compliance team will actually go and inspect now and see if they're 100% certain that all those things that our code determines to be auto-approved are actually completely legit, so that we don't make payments that shouldn't be made without some sort of human intervention. Once they're comfortable with that those rules are 100% certain, then it should not be much work for us to be able to sort of fork the queue so that the people that can be auto-approved could be sort of just like pretty much within hours just go through the process of getting payment. Now, you always have whatever time PayPal takes or anybody else takes that we have no control over, but at least we can initiate the payment like pretty much right away. And it doesn't sound like that's a huge amount of work. It's a fairly simple task. So it's mostly about reviewing our rule set to make sure that the computer makes the right decision on whether we can or cannot pay someone without further review. So I hope we'll figure this out in a few weeks. But I've said this before, and sorry, we actually dropped the ball on this. We had this in process, and then there were some changes in responsibilities, and sort of it fell on the floor. And we sort of, when the question came in here, I was like, what the hell is going on with this issue? And dug around a bit, and it sort of, no one was actively chasing it. So the team is on it now. So hopefully we can actually get this done pretty soon. Although if they discover that the process of approving someone has lots of issues, it might take quite a while to sort those out and make sure we get the rule set cleared. There might also be a separate option of manually whitelisting certain accounts and go. But that sort of is not something you can do at massive scale. So it would only impact a few key accounts. But hopefully the auto rules are actually pretty darn close to perfect, so that we can just roll this out.
Fantastic. So if all goes well, in a couple of weeks, with some luck, we can have our payments within hours. That'll be fantastic.
Yeah. The other thing that we noodle on, to be honest, is whether this warrants do we want to charge for this? But
you sound Dutch.
Yeah. That's my mother's side kicking in. And if we roll it out for free, then if we start to charge for it later, then in a previous place I used to work, we charged a couple extra points on this, and people were happily paid for that.
Mm-hmm.
And because we are, which is maybe a different topic that I'm not sure we will be touching today, we want to think about how we can reduce land cost, which means we have to pick it up somewhere else.
Yeah.
Not necessarily all of it, but some of it. And this might be one place where we could pick up something. And so that would be a
could
bigger...
be something for premium members. Because, that's a little enticement.
For example, that's an interesting idea. So, but that would mean that the scope of this thing might, expand a little bit, and it might take a little bit longer. Because, it can be painful to roll out something for free and then start charging for it later.
I've just had a little voice in my earbug with a message from Oz about bento. So I'm just going to put this in now.
Perfect.
We don't have a recording capability now and don't plan to add one as part of bento, Oz says. And animations can already affect only specific bones, and there's a priority scheme for which one works. That won't change with bento.
Yeah, it's pretty much just an extension of what we have. There's nothing else radically changing. Yep.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Okay, well, we had loads and loads of questions about Sansar, so we're going to turn to Project Sansar now. And to kick off, we have a question from Harlow Jalbert, who's asking, is Sansar a place to live or more of a day trip amusement park? Is it somewhere we would go for experiences but kind of still live in Second Life?
I think the answer is yes. I mean, there are parts of Second Life where you want to live, and that people do live, and there are amusement parks that you just want to visit.
Yeah.
So I don't think I don't think Second Life is one or the other. It's both. And I think Sansar will do the same. And once we get to the ability for people to create communities, then people will want to live there. And there will also be amusement parks. So I don't think it's one or the other. I think it's what creators choose to create.
It's going to be both. Excellent.
Yeah.
In the last lab chat, we talked a little about avatars in Sansar, and that has brought up questions from Loki Elliott, Lilith Hart, Digit Gears, Richardus Raymaker, Imagine Idiar, and Majestic Kohime, or however you pronounce any of those names. And Loki asked, can you please clarify how avatars will function throughout Project Sansar? You stated that experiences in Sansar would dictate how your character or avatar looked in an experience. Does this mean users won't have their own personally crafted avatars from one experience to the next?
So I think we have two ends of the spectrum. I will have my own avatar, my own identity, and there are places where I can go as myself, and there are places that would want me to show up as myself, like a nightclub or amusement park. Then it makes sense for me to be who I am. There are other experiences where, someone does a space thing and we're supposed to be astronauts, and me showing up as a funky chicken would just completely ruin the immersion for that experience. So those are the two extremes where I either go in as myself and the place allows me to be myself, and then there are other places where the creator can dictate that the only way you can look in this place is, like this. There's a kind of an interesting medium there of how much can my body still be inside of whatever look that the creator wants me to have. Well, that gray area starts to get really complicated, because creating a spacesuit for a funky chicken is not something they would necessarily make easy to work. So they might have to impose what type of a skeleton I have. So can I then have my face in there? So if I look inside that helmet, I still see who that person is. Well, again, it sort of depends on the range. So I think we will solve for be yourself, and also solve for allowing the creator to dictate what you look like in the particular experience. And then the middle part is something I think we'll find what we can do over time, because that sort of has just a huge range of complexity to figure out. So I think we'll start with, I think that pretty much sums it up.
Well, I'm still sort of wondering how it's going to work when you arrive at a sim or location. Will you get a little message that says, "Can we change your avatar to fit in?" Or is it just going to happen without you knowing it? How will that happen? The actual change.
Well, it may depend on the creator. The creator might, for example, let you choose one of 5 types of looks to enter into that experience with, right? You can be, choose, the blue one or the red one or whatever. That should be up to the creator, because they might not everybody to show up looking the same. And so there will probably be, and if they want everybody to just be the same, or even go to an extreme where everybody is the same, but you're forced into first person, and that's it. That's what the experience is.
Yeah.
And we want to give the creators much control as possible over what it's like to be in that experience and what avatars look like in that experience. Because again, where our primary focus is on empowering creators to create experiences that make sense for whatever situation that might be. So, and then you will have some that wants to have some sort of flexibility. Yeah, you can sort of be yourself, but you got to choose amongst these types of clothing to try and fit on you. And that's where it gets yeah, and that's where it gets more complicated, because getting clothing that can fit all body types is, as we know, a very complex problem.
But of course, they could have shops. They could have like outlier shops from popular designers who would have clothes suitable for that experience.
Yeah,
we're trying that in Berlin at the moment.
Yeah, that could be an option that creator choose to go down that path of letting visitors either get free items or even buy items that would make them suitable to progress into the experience somehow.
Yeah, because that could be good for not just the experience creators. They could have a partnership, as Jo does in Berlin, of course, with and places like Caledon, at kind of popular landing points. They have dress shops and even free clothing, so people can either get free clothing or go a little bit more exciting.
We have freebies and shops, but unless one of us is actually always online, we have no real way of enforcing it. So that would be interesting. We offer the clothes, we tell people what we want in their avatars, changes, things like that. But once they get into Berlin and nobody's there, there's nothing we can do about it. So it would be nice if we got some sort of magical power there.
Yeah, the tricky power for the scenario you're creating, Jo, is that you want everybody to have a very unique look. Their own personal identity. You just want it to be thematically appropriate for the 1920s, which means, and trying to figure out how to do that programmatically is quite hard. And that falls in that middle section, or I say is almost the most difficult problem to solve, whereas the extreme of just be yourself, or the other extreme of, no, you're going to look like this, those are kind of the easier ones. And then the middle one there is like, I don't know, but we're going to have to, it's going to be something that's going to take a while to sort out.
Yeah. Well, I have a follow-up question on the same subject. Lilith Hart wants to know if there will be a universal avatar where we will be able to transport our inventory between our sensor experience and another. And Richardus Raymaker, Digit Gears, and Majestic Ohimi asked about the degree of inward customization you'll be able to make. For instance, will you be able to make changes to shape, skin, hair, and clothes, both in terms of what you buy and in terms of what you self-create or not?
Okay, there was kind of maybe a lot there, but yes, you will be able to modify your body shape. I think for starters, we'll focus on bipeds and humanoids, and then we'll, over time, we'll think about how we allow for other types of, and so our user interface will probably be focused on, I would say, bipedal humanoids, and then there might be either that people can upload complete custom skeletons and avatars that could be all kinds of different ways. I think that there's still a lot of discussion around this. But you certainly should be able to do some basic shape-shifting, skin tone, morphing, to sort of create a unique identity for yourself. And then we're also trying to solve for how can we make it so that clothing is less complex of an issue. How can we just solve so that you can sort of create a garment and sort of have it fit a very wide range of avatar shapes without a lot of sort of either having to have multiple sizes or the issues you have where some avatars just kind of can't fit certain clothing. So we're trying to figure out how to crack that problem, but it's a really tricky problem, and again, will take a while. I can't even say that we'll get that sorted out this year. So I don't know that we know exactly. I mean, we have a plan of what we want to accomplish, but how far can we get by December remains to be seen. And there's no doubt in my mind that you're going to sense less flexibility and variety and that you have in Second Life today on day one in Sansar. But we also want to focus on making it so that over time, the end product of Sansar actually makes it easier for people to customize and get dressed without having stuff poking out where they shouldn't.
Yeah. Or wearing lots of highly complex alphas to stop it poking. Yeah.
But you will have this, you will have just one inventory that you can use no matter what you do with your avatar, where you go.
Well, some of your inventory might be, I guess, attached to an experience. It might only be relevant in a particular experience, and it's up sort of to the creator to keep track of those items. But in general, yes, you will have one inventory across everything. Unless a creator just says that, no, in this context, this is your inventory, because you can't just, arbitrarily res anything or wear anything, because I want you to be an astronaut and you have 3 tools and that's it. So again, it's up to the creator.
Or I don't want you to drink my schnapps in any other sim, something like that.
Yeah, then you would keep track of the schnapps on behalf of that user, which is kind of similar to what you can do with experience keys today in Second Life.
Yes, I was at a place, I was at Eliza White's new home, and she's designed a butlering system which allows you to grab a guitar and start serenading your guests, or just play it for your own amusement. But as soon as you leave the house, then the guitar goes, because it's part of an experience tour.
Exactly. And so that is something we will just, sort of that ability for creators to manage that, call it local inventory or experience inventory, and the state that users have within your experience is something we want to have sort of baked in from the beginning in Sansar. And it's part of, giving more power to the creators from the get-go.
Yeah, someone has just said experiences seem to open up a lot of possibilities with gaming, and that certainly sounds very true.
Absolutely. I mean, gaming, you could argue, is just kind of, sophisticated games, you could argue, are some of the most complex. If you can do sophisticated games on the platform, then you can almost do everything else.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it seems to me that if you're going for a sophisticated gaming experience, if you are going for someone in Sansar who's essentially designed, I was going to say World of Warcraft, but that's all copyright, so it wouldn't be World of Warcraft. But, someone who has designed the ultimate elven experience, it would be like going to a whole new game, really, wouldn't it?
Yeah, you walk into that experience, and that experience dictates who you are and what you can do, what your view of the world is, and yeah, as much as control as we can give to the creator, then going in from one experience to the other could feel like I'm in something where I'm in full control, and I go into someone else's experience, and it takes control of what the experience is like, right? So it's about giving power to the creators to sort of impose themselves on visitors, if you will.
That does sound fascinating.
Right.
Now, we've had, and this kind of flows out of what we've just been talking about, we've had quite a few questions about building in Sansar, both about in-world building and programs used externally. These questions come from Shag Maitland, Alexis Ducour, Richardus Raymaker, Son Iba, Dresden, Tectum Newman, and Digit Gears. On in-world building, Shag asks, how will it be similar or different from building in-world in Second Life? Will we, for example, be building with voxels, prims, or something completely new? Will there be a built-in way to create or edit mesh in world?
So I think we're currently focusing mostly on layout. And great support for importing objects from the outside, so that you could use whatever tool of choice to do your mesh work, and then just import it into Sansar, and then be able to lay it out, with great tools to sort of lay out and scale and position things within the world. We're also working on terrain tools where there'll probably be some sort of mix of voxel and height map tech to try and stitch things together. At some point, yes, why should I have to completely go back to an external tool to sort of just, poke at an object to reshape it or tweak it to some degree? And then you get into sort of, editing. And at some point, once you have some of those basic capabilities of just, shape objects, then you could just also start with the option of people dropping in basic shapes directly from in-world. Can just drop a cube on the ground and start, poking at it to reshape it. So I think that would be kind of a progression. Right now, we're pretty much exclusively focused on, by June, get it so that you have really powerful layout capabilities, and also the ability to import. Maybe we'll just start with FBX or something like that, so you can import objects from the outside world and lay them out in Sansar. And then over time, we'll see if we'll support additional file formats, and then over time, we'll also get into more and more as we start to see what users need, how much editing we need to support in-world. We do not want to try and be the superset of all the tools that everybody wants. There's so many great tools out there, from Maya to Blender to 3D Max, and then you have architectural tools. There's huge suites of tools that we will never sort of try and be better than any one of them, or certainly not the sum of those. So we want to make sure that you can use all those tools and bring content in, and then sort of do the final positioning and layout of things smooth and easy inside. And then after that, like I said, we'll see where we start to allow for more sort of direct manipulation of shaping things inside.
But you are planning to eventually have some sort of in-world building tool, because I personally think that's essential, especially for people who are not very experienced with outside software.
I'm pretty sure we'll get there too in some way, but I just don't know that we'll get there this year.
Right.
So for starters, you might have to be 100% dependent on some external tools to create your objects.
Yeah. Another question. This one comes from Richardus. He wants to know if users will have placement tools, while Majestic wonders what land creation tools will be available. For example, will it be possible to create, submarine homes that don't have to be filled with water? And will we have more freedom with the land? In Second Life, it's quite primitive what we can do with our land. Hills or make it a little bit deeper.
Yeah, so we've had a couple of guys work on terrain, what we call it, and a terrain editor that ultimately will be more powerful, so that you can create caves and overhangs, and that's what I mentioned. We're working on technology to sort of stitch voxel and height maps together, so that you can get naturally blended transitions between those technologies, and then make sure that it gets performant, and then over time make it so that you can create some really cool, lush, interesting landscapes directly from within Sansar, and then place objects on top of that landscape.
Well, while we're on this subject, just had a question in from Digit Gears. Will people be able to do much, much more customizable textures for the terrain land than the form we have in Second Life at the moment?
Ultimately, yes. I just don't know how far we're going to get by the end of the year for sort of the opening day that we're shooting for. But yeah, the goal, and there's those, you can go on forever with all kinds of interesting technologies to auto-generate vegetation and all kinds of things. So we'll have to see how far we can get, but we have a couple of people plowing away on that terrain tool, and it's some of these things are just really hard to predict how long things are going to take. But yeah, the goal is ultimately that you can create some really fascinating, unique terrain with little effort and a lot of ability to just drill holes and tunnels and overhangs and stuff like that.
And undersea caves.
Undersea, yes, underwater without flooding.
Yeah, water is a whole other thing. Like what is water, and how do you fill a hole with water, and what is the water line?
Is it going to be fluid?
Well, we
that
do
would be
have
very exciting.
There is technologies that we sort of have available to us based on some technology choices we made, but it's going to take a while for us to get to that part where we're not there yet. But yeah, someday. Someday you should be able to fill a glass with water and pour it over to a beaker, whatever. I mean, we want to get there someday. We actually get a lot of requests. I just want to dig a hole and then see it fill. Yeah, we get a lot of requests actually from the educational market that, especially the people that worked on sort of chemistry labs and stuff where people want to, play with liquids in all kinds of ways. So, like I said, we have technology available to us that support these capabilities, but it's not even on the roadmap right now. We have too much other stuff to get to first.
Yeah. So what is this opening day you were shooting for?
End of the year.
And
when is beta? Where can we get in?
Well, we're going to continuously try and increase. So we've had about a dozen or so people, a few moles and a few sort of, call them expert shops, sort of playing with Sansar right now. I mean, there's not a ton you can do. You can create some really cool environment, but there's no scripting yet, so you can't really create a lot of interactive stuff. And so there's still a lot missing. But by June, we want to continuously add more people month after month after month. And by June, we want to be able to get to a point where we can invite even more people. We still want to manage it, though, because we will have changes along the way where it's like, sorry, folks, we just broke all your stuff. And we don't want to have...
I don't mind.
Yeah, I know. It's all right for some people, but, you don't want to have too many people spend, billions of hours creating stuff, and then we go, oh, sorry, just, start over. So we want to get to some level of sort of stability in our sort of, call it... I don't really file format, but the way we keep things so that you can sort of expect to have it, carry on forward. But we want to get into the hundreds of creators sort of around the June timeframe, and then open the door for for anyone to come in by December, or could be that we finish all the work by December and we sort of open the doors in January, because I'm not sure we want to open the doors right before Christmas. But the goal is to have a product that anyone can come in and play with, by the inside of a year.
Soon, and Alexis want to know what additional tools and workflow creators need to become familiar with in order to be able to create in this new world.
Well, like I've been saying for a long time, I mean, you should definitely learn Mesh. And for those who like to script, it wouldn't hurt for you to learn C#, as those will be very prominent as how we do things on a go-forward basis. So the more you can learn Mesh, and if you're interested in scripting, learn C#, then you're preparing yourself for what Sansar is going to require.
Okay, well, we've had a question from Lilith Hart about the framework, or perhaps the underlying metaphor for Sansar. Lilith asked, surely there'll be a map of Sansar worlds, because without a world map there will be no sense of community. How will people find each other and interesting experiences without a map?
So right now we're not thinking of it as a single world with a single map. And I don't think of Second Life as a community. I think of it as a huge collection of communities that don't necessarily interact with each other at all, because they don't speak the same language and they don't have the same interests. So I think this notion that the map creates a sense of a single community is kind of like not really the way I see things. I want people to be able to create really large experiences. If you want to create a continent of stitching together lots of regions and create something, massive, and that maybe has its own map someday for that particular experience, that would be cool. But I don't think of Sansar as being sort of a single world with a single map.
I guess it depends a bit on how people experience whatever they're experiencing, because, I'm in Second Life only in 1920 Berlin, but I really use this map to travel from one spot to another. So that, it sort of depends, I guess. For some, it may change a lot.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I've said a while now is that one thing we want to do is break down the walls of Second Life. Second Life is kind of like a walled garden, where pretty much all users come in through the front door, and primarily because we, buy those users on the internet and send them to the front door, and then they go through the welcome and area, and then it's sort of kind of like, good luck finding something that's relevant to you once you're on the inside. So I kind of think of Sansar as sort of turning it inside out, where every experience is an entry point in of itself. So Jo, for example, you with your Berlin, you probably have a better idea of where a relevant audience for that experience exists out in the world than we do. We certainly have no capacity to try and acquire users that are interested in 1920s Berlin. That's way too niche for us to try and do that marketing. So you should have the tools to being able to attract your own audience into your experience directly from the outside world.
Yeah.
We've talked about, we're going to do some of these steps in Second Life as well. We talked about trying to straighten out these slurls so that when you give a slurl to someone, you can feel really high confidence that they're going to actually end up at the destination of what that slurl's pointing to, and not get lost in some registration flow and never get there.
And also it's a bit shorter.
Yeah, and then also something that Second Life is also going to work on, and Sansar is going to have from day one, is the notion of these, associated web page for each experience, so that I can give someone a link, it comes to this web page that describes the experience, and then I go into that experience. As part of that process, I may have to register with the platform, but the whole flow is about getting into that experience. Now, discovering things then opens it up for people to discover this experience on the internet. Not just discover things once they're inside this hermetically sealed thing called Second Life. So that's how we think differently about Sansar. And then, once you're inside that one experience, then yes, you can obviously use search tools and directories and stuff to discover other experiences. And then some of this experience might be gargantuan because people get together and create something that might, feel like mainland or something, but it's completely created by the users.
It's going to be interesting, because if you've got like a website that draws all the experiences together, you could have thousands upon thousands of experiences coming onto that website.
A bit like the destination guide.
Yeah, I mean, think of it as like, Sansar, Project Sansar / creator name, maybe / experience name. And that's a web page that once you create that experience, you can sort of, have some control in how you promote that experience and then go out and drive traffic to yourself. So it's kind of like a out of the box kind of community gateway thing. Every experience has its own gateway into itself.
But of course the website's not going to be Project Sansar, but the official name, which is
yeah, I was just wondering that.
TBD.
What?
It's still to be decided. It's not going to be called TBD. Sure, because there's a lot of interesting things that TBD could stand for, but that's not it. No, it's to be decided still.
All right.
I was thinking, yes, TBD is the name, and that's the big announcement to come out of this show. Yeah.
No news there.
Oh, well, I tried.
Yeah.
Right. Now a crossover question between Second Life and Sansar. Abriana Oceanside asks, I know that there was once a big focus on the capabilities of providing rich educational and more interactive business experiences for real-world establishments within the realm of Second Life. Do you feel that this is something that we've lost sight of? And do you see a potential for growth in these areas as our technological capabilities have very much changed since those earlier days? And also, will the impending launch of Sansar, is that an area that will also be a focus within that platform?
Yes. We do definitely talk about both Second Life and Sansar maybe more so because we have opportunity to shape it more easily than Second Life. To have a really broad-ranging set of types of users. There will be architects, there will be health professionals, there will be educators, there will be role players, there will be, whatever you want to make. And so there will be sort of business, I think, more ability for businesses to create experience on Sansar, I think, with less of the issues that they may have had with Second Life in the past. And part of that is that you can create an experience and actually drive your own audience into your experience, and you can control who can access that experience. And you can do all these things in Second Life today, but it's not obvious, and it's some things also makes it difficult for businesses to take advantage of the platform as they would like. Where that's control, and a lot of it might have to do with scale, and that's something I've spoken about before, that we want to make it so that in Sansar you can create an experience that can scale a lot more. So yeah, we definitely think broadly like that, and don't just think of it as a game for some narrow type of categories. We think very broad, which is challenging because it's almost we're building something for almost anything, and sometimes you have to narrow your focus a little bit because you could become, too spread out where you become almost, not really something for anybody. But we definitely think of it as in very broad terms what this platform should be able to do. And we do continue to have a lot of interaction with people that do business. Not just selling clothing and land and whatever they do in Second Life, but I mean for business purposes like education or health. We and architects to try and understand what is it that works or does not work for them. I have frequent meetings with a solution provider that is targeting sort of the educational space using Second Life and trying to understand what can we do to make Second Life easier for him to go sell to businesses, and not just him, but I just have him top of mind because he was just here visiting just a couple of weeks ago. There's different things that cause issues for businesses. Some of it is that you have to open a lot of ports in your networking, which some companies find is sort of not comfortable with from a security perspective. Okay, what can we do about those kinds of things? There's the ability to scale experiences. There's a number of things that we're looking at, and we're also trying to figure out how many of those kinds of businesses could we get on Second Life, and how much of that work should we do to try and cater to that type of an audience, or should we spend more of our energy on solving that problem with Sansar and let Second Life focus more on where it's already having even more obvious success than, I would say, sort of the B2B space. But yeah, we definitely want to support a very broad range of uses for the platform.
Before I ask my next question, I was just going to do a time check with you, Abby.
Let me check my calendar.
Coming up to...
I think. Yeah, I got at least another half hour to go.
Yes, good, because we've got some great questions coming up.
All right, let's keep rolling.
Okay, we're moving back to Sansar fully with this question. Johannes 1977 and Russell Hobbs both asked about art in Sansar. Johannes asked about art-related tools in the proposed Sansar viewer. Will we have win lights, for example, and the abilities to create them? And what about filters? Johannes says that he's read Sansar will have the possibility to sell scenes. Will that be true of artists who would like to sell, say, 3D scenes, but without using Maya? And Russell would like to know if the lab is planning something like the Linton Endowment for the Arts in Sansar.
So, don't know about Winlight, but I mean, ultimately we want people to be able to have fun with special effects and atmospherics and various ways to create a unique range of look and feel. I mean, I think for the starters, we're kind of staying in the what you can author. So I'm not sure we're not really thinking about what you said, filters or ways to just wholesale change look and feel of things like that. But that doesn't say we're not going to go there. It's just not something that's like it's too far out. It's later. So no clear answers on that. On endowment for arts, if it's something that is required for that community to be successful, then we'll do something like that. Hopefully the cost of land is something we can have come down far enough that it becomes less of a critical need. But even if if there's a need for us to support the arts, I'm sure we will think of ways, because I think that's a really, a critical piece. Mm-hmm. And some of those experiences, clearly why they need support is because they're difficult to monetize.
Yes.
And so, and it would be sad if you didn't have that type of creativity going on, because it people couldn't afford it. So first, what can we do to make sure that it's not too expensive to do that? And then if it's still an issue, then I think we'll think of ways to make sure that it can get supported sufficiently.
I think it would be exciting, certainly, because maybe we could bring on all the arts that way: music, art, literature, poetry. All of that would be so cool to build it up there.
Yeah, absolutely. Next question comes from Marcus Perry, and he asks, Second Life has a very large aviation community, but the very small size of sims and the resulting issues, like region crossings, they make flying tough. Will Sansa cater to aviation and, of course, boating, sailing, racing, etc. Enthusiasts more?
Yeah, I mean, we should be in a better place right off the bat, because we're going to have a much more robust physics engine and very large regions.
How large?
Multiple kilometers.
Exactly.
So instead of 256 meters, think,
Yes.
multiple kilometers. And so it's, the need, therefore, for border crossings, which actually right now we're not contemplating on solving for border crossings like we do in Second Life. Mm-hmm. So the movement from one region to other will have to be through some sort of a portal, which we want to try and be creative in making sure that the community can also do creative ways for people to transition from one region to the other, so that you can ultimately stitch together lots of regions to create massive experiences where you still feel like it's all one cohesive whole, but you won't necessarily just, fly across from one region to the next without, and like you often can in Second Life, but not always.
Yeah.
But hopefully the size of the regions themselves will sort of alleviate the need for that sort of attempted smooth region crossing. The region crossing is just a really difficult problem to solve, so we're sort of going to stay away from that, at least for the foreseeable future.
And when you say multiple kilometers, I'm going to keep poking at this. Are we talking 1 or 20 or?
Well, 1 is not multiple.
Oh, that's true. So at least 2. So we're talking 2 square kilometers at least.
Well, or twice that.
Oh, so 4. All right. I'm making notes.
Well, part of it is what's sort of feasible with sort of math for a coordinate system. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of the upper range for where things start to get funky to deal with. So, but yeah, think in those terms.
But 4 kilometers, square kilometer, that's quite a big piece of land or water to sail or fly in or race on.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Right. So, next question. Tectum Newman asks, experience creation depends on fostering some combination of tribalism, by which I think he means a strong community, and a sense of progression among its users. This requires good database storage and integration, and it also requires a very flexible avatar permission system, customizable by each experience. I think we've already talked about
I think we covered that. Yeah, I think we covered that, and the fact that we want to have built in from the beginning for creators to have sort of what we've been introducing in Second Life, but maybe shoehorned a little bit with the experience key system, so that, yes, a creator can have a database store to keep track of their users and the progression of their users in their experience, and items associated with those users, etc. So yeah, that should be there as soon as we can, so that creators can have that level of control in creating experiences. Yep.
That would be great. So the database will be similar to the way the database works for the experience now.
Well, I mean, it sort of comes down to sort of some sort of key value pair, right? To be able to store that kind of information, and how similar it will be to how we did experience keys, I don't know exactly, but the idea is that this is something we want to have from the beginning built into the system, rather than the way we had to shoehorn experience keys in after the fact in Second Life. 12
years down the line.
Yeah.
Okay, Jo.
Finally, another one from our submitted questions. We have this one from Loki Elliott. Loki asks, what has your reaction been to the cost of Oculus, and how do you see this affecting Project Sansa? The device seems aimed at hardcore gamers. Would Project Sansa appeal to such a niche group? Because, some people may not know it, but the Oculus Rift is going to cost about $500, which is
600.
quite a bit higher. 600 exactly, $599, more than most people were expecting.
Yeah, I'm not too surprised about it. I mean, I thought it would be maybe $100 cheaper, but you look at the technology goes in there; it's incredible. I mean, think about it. You have to pay for an iPhone.
I don't have one.
No, but if you wanted to just buy an iPhone outright with no plan, it's like $700. So and there's a phone inside of that headset, and they have all this other technology. So they're losing money, I'm sure, on every unit they sell. That's so they're subsidizing it somehow to get down to 600 even. I think the issue is less. I mean, so you have to pay $1,000 for a PC that has sufficient graphics card, and then $600 for this thing. But 2 years from now, that will be 800 and 400 or whatever. I'm talking random numbers here, but the price will continue to come down as the industry at large now, from hardware manufacturer, component manufacturers, sort of focus on this particular product line, and as things scale up, cost will come down. But I think the more important piece is, when will software applications and services get to the point where it becomes a must-have? Right now, the issue is that there's not enough content or experiences that makes it worthwhile. Meanwhile, people complain about this price of, altogether maybe $1,600 for something like that, and then they go buy TV for $2,000. Right? It's like, wait a minute. That's because they assume that the content they get through that, TV is worth that money. But, $1,600 for this Oculus thing, well, that's not worth it, because they haven't yet seen what value they're going to get out of it. Once you realize you can have better meetings, you can have, play all these games, you can create solutions, you can make money, you can do all kinds of things in this immersive experience. At some point you go, you know what, that's worth a lot more than the TV is. And it starts to look, comparatively speaking, reasonable or cheap. So I think it'll take years for both the hardware and the software to get to the point where sort of people can assume some value out of it other than just as a toy. But it will happen. I mean, we just saw Goldman Sachs came out with a report where they estimated VR would sort of be a bigger business than TV in 10 years. So, and TV has had a while to go at it.
And it's on its way out.
And it's on its way out. Well, not video, but just that, way of consuming it, it's going out.
Well, my beta cam video recorder is out the door.
So I think I'm glad that they're actually focusing on high quality, and I'd rather they come out something with really high quality that allows people like ourselves to create incredible experiences, maybe for a smaller audience to start with, but having something where it's just kind of not really doing it. So I think it's a good thing that they aimed high, and I mean, it'd be nice if it was cheaper, but over time, I think we'll as the prices come down a bit, and as the whole ecosystem delivers more value, it'll start to look like a reasonable purchase or even a must-have purchase. So,
and the longer it takes, the more time we've got to make Project Sansar that one thing that's going to make people more excited.
Yeah.
And on that note, I'm going to take an audience question here from Maxwell Graf, who says, are there any plans for integrating Sansar with upcoming VR experience hardware like the Rift and Vive from HTC, using perhaps something like OSVR or other methods for I/O interface operation, control and navigation, etc. Okay, a lot of that went over my head.
And it makes perfect sense to me. So, well, we're obviously right now we're targeting two platforms with Sansar. Sort of, two that are sort of side by side in our development: PC, Windows, and Oculus. So every build of Sansar that we push out supports those out of the box. Over time, we will support more controllers and other types of HMDs, like the Vive from HTC and Valve, and part of it will be us seeing what hardware will actually have success in the market and we'll have sufficient market share that it makes sense to support it. And part of it will just be to allow easy extensibility to plug in different types of hardware. We're not leveraging something like OSVR because that's sort of a layer in between that really just, as far as I can tell, it's a convenient thing to do if you don't have the resources. But I think you're paying a penalty on performance by having an extra layer in between there. It might be something we want to look at for. I'm not sure what the requirements are there because that's a piece of open source software, but it might be something we want to look at if we want to support a long range of sort of niche hardware that there's hundreds of people using. But we want to make sure that we support all the common popular platforms. And the ones you can see have a chance of becoming popular is Oculus, the HTC Vive, Project, or it was called Morpheus, but PlayStation VR, although that's kind of a more gaming-centric audience. But it takes a little bit more effort to port to that platform than supporting other devices on the Windows platform. At some point, we have to solve for Mac, which we're not tackling today, so that you can consume on a Mac PC. Now, Mac does not have a VR story. Right?
I know, it's
none of these people are building hardware to work with the Mac. So
we're being ignored.
Yeah, so high-end HMDs are kind of exclusively in the Windows domain today, but we at least would like to make sure that people can consume it on sort of the desktop Mac at some point. But there's plenty of users there, and then mobile. Make sure that we can support iOS and Android at least, so that you can participate in Sansar experiences from mobile devices as well. And today we have a prototype that we can stream Sansar to iOS phone, and that's sort of working in a prototype stage already. That one, though, as you know from work that's happened in this space before, is that the cloud GPUs cost money, so we have to figure out how would we charge for something like that. But yeah, that's where we're at on platforms.
I'm just going to whisper one little word before we leave this subject, because it's kind of been popping up throughout the audience. Linux.
Yeah, not high. It's such an incredibly small user base that it's just. There are other platforms, like the fact that we're not actively solving for Macintosh, right? It's kind of like we'll get to it later. Then you can Linux is even later, if at all, because of the tiny audience you have there. So I'm not sure. At this point, I can't promise Linux at all, unless for some reason there's a huge growth in the user base there. Now, we do a lot of things that actually... we do Linux on the servers, so a lot of our code is compatible with it, but it's not something I can promise we'll tackle anytime soon. Right.
Well, I think we'll move on to more questions from the audience now. We've pretty much done all the questions that we choose from the forums. Here's a question from Blindman75. And he asks, is it possible, will it be possible to embed audio navigational elements for those of us with low to no vision in order that we may be able to navigate a little bit more freely within Second Life or Sansar or anything else?
Sorry, I spaced out on the beginning. What?
Blindman75 asks, is it possible or will it be possible to embed audio navigational elements for those of us with low to no vision in order that we may be able to navigate a little bit more freely within Second Life?
Okay, so visually impaired people, what can we do to make it easy for them to
yeah, because there's quite a few of them in Second Life.
Yeah, to use the platform and to navigate. Again, it's not something that I've heard us discuss specifically what we can do. So that's something I would love to hear. What we preferred solutions for those people.
I'm sure we could set up a meeting to discuss that if you would like to.
Yeah, I think we can find someone on Björn's team who could at least understand what the potential range of requirements would be. Not when we could get to them, I don't know. Maybe we can make sure we don't make some mistakes along the way to make it difficult to solve for down the road. And some of them might be easy. Some of them might be hard. I don't know. They're obviously text-to-speech and speech-to-text capabilities are getting smarter and smarter and smarter. And you have services, and it's not something we would build from scratch, but they're you're starting to have Google and Microsoft and even Amazon starting to get into this as a service. Mm-hmm. Even with translation capabilities, in Skype now you can have two people speak different languages and have translation in between. So hopefully down the road, this is something we can find a service like that and plug it in. And it would be kind of a cost. And how would we make sure that if there's enough users that would leverage something like that, that it would be worth it?
It wouldn't just help those people who have hearing problems, but it would also help those of us who are using the Oculus Rift and don't want to type, but also want to remain anonymous and not use our real voice, because it could translate there as well. So there's many possibilities there with tools like that.
Jessica Lyon and Gentle Heron are just talking about how useful it would have to have voice to text and text to voice built into the system.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think VR will probably put more pressure on some of these things, because I think the keyboard and the mouse become completely useless in a VR context. So
I tried.
Yeah, and then once you put controllers in your hand to interact with the environment, then how would you possibly type anything? Then people try and put up sort of virtual keyboards, and I can stare at the letters and blink or whatever to type, and I'm not sure if that would be highly used. So then it becomes, speech or speech to text that become the solutions for people to be able to communicate in various ways. I'm just rooting for Google and Microsoft and these guys to just make those services better and better and better and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, so that when we want to introduce it, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Gentle's just made the point that paralyzed people are using the on-screen keyboards in Second Life already.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's an amazing.
Yeah, no. I mean, if they're for people that that's their only option, it works well. So virtual keyboards might be an option. Text-to-speech, speech-to-text, these are all options. But I don't think any of this will be in place, this year. We'll have to deal with this further down.
Okay, so more questions from the audience. Jessica Lyon asks, I assume Linden Lab has considered inhibiting entry difficulties companies or experienced creators will be faced with when joining Sansar. For example, they will potentially need to hire C# programmers, Maya and Blender creators, designers, and so on. Plus time will have to be invested while these experiences are being developed. What, if any, services will Linden Lab be offering potential experienced creators to alleviate some of those difficulties? And as a potential client or customer of Sansar, I'm discouraged by the complexities of building an experience. What will Linden Lab do to help me get started?
Well, we want to try and make the product as easy to use as possible. But without sacrificing a ton of power, and that's the trick. How do you provide sort of this almost unlimited power for what you can do and still keep it relatively simple to do? It's a really tricky balance but I think we can do better than what we have in Second Life today. Obviously, getting a community of scale so that the people that have the right skills can be found and that people can help each other. And you can trade skills amongst each other. which happens in Second Life all the time, that people collaborate and pitch in with their unique skills to make things happen. Lower the barrier of entry that you have today with the high land cost is something we want to tackle, so that if you need to build something that's going to take 6 months, you're not, 300 times $6, down the drain before you can even start trying to collect any income of what you've created. Or if your intent is not necessarily to make it a super commercial thing, but whether it's for arts or whatever, that it's more sustainable by lowering the land cost. Which is why we say we want to lower the land cost, but then collect more fees elsewhere throughout the system, so that we can, and then also try and create a system that is more scalable or more efficient and less costly for us to operate ultimately, so that we can pass those savings along. And then I'm sure there will be all kinds of solution providers on top of the platform that could provide all kinds of service. We're not really thinking of us getting into the professional services and creating solutions. That could be a business we could do ourselves, but I think I'd rather not compete with potential solution providers on the platform and let them do that. So right now we're not thinking of getting into that ourselves. And then a thriving marketplace where you can find great quality content and solutions and scripts and entire scenes that can get you up and running quick. If you want to have a meeting room, you should be able to go buy one or rent one on the marketplace, and boom, there you are, ready to roll. Invite people, and you're going within hopefully, hours and not weeks. So there's a sum of a lot of things to try and make it more attractive to more creators, and then also enable the platform to scale much better, so that you can, through instancing and obviously higher concurrency on we talked about land being, regions being much bigger, but then also being able to have higher concurrency on those regions, but then also be able to, for certain cases, it also makes sense to be able to instance those. So I like to talk about the example of, the chemistry lab that Texas A&M has used to teach chemistry in Second Life. Someone created that probably at an hourly rate it was a request from Texas A&M, please create this lab. But someone should be able to create that and then put that entire, chemistry lab on the marketplace, and then go and rent a unit of that to every school on the planet, not just to this one customer. So now you create, all kinds of ways that we're thinking of how can we make an experience a much more scalable business opportunity. And then you will attract more sophisticated creators and developers and what have you to come to the platform, because they can see they can get, massive return on that investment. Whereas in Second Life, you pretty much tap out at, sort of call it the hobby level. If you want to go beyond sort of the hobby level, then you just, whether it's cost or complexity of just having high concurrency, you tap out before you can make it big enough of a business. So we want to solve a lot of those problems.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Go on, Jo.
Next question is from Melanie Bouvier. I'm just assuming that it's French. She asks, we're going to be allowed or get the option to market via social media to a dedicated website for our simulator in Sansa. Will there be an extra fee for this webpage, or do we have to register our own domain?
I don't think we'll charge a fee for this, because it's in our interest for these web pages to be out there, because that creates SEO and discovery of the platform, which will ultimately, in aggregate, help us reduce the marketing spend or cost per acquisition go down, because you get more organic discovery of experiences and content. Maybe at some point you can have like super duper, website which costs you extra or something, but we haven't talked about that today. So the intent is that every experience will just have, by default, an associated web page. Now, ours might be fairly simplistic. It's sort of like data-driven, and yes, of course, you can fill in, the title and the body and some pictures or something, and over time, we'll make it more and more advanced, but maybe you prefer to sort of completely roll your own in WordPress and like go to town on a website that describes your entire experience and have that be sort of maybe even replace our sort of default web page for that experience. So
yes, a very website page with lots of options would be great. For instance, we're still having trouble with Facebook kicking us off when we create avatar accounts. So if you have some sort of page on the Second Life website for your experience, but also with options for to have group chats and share pictures, that could be quite interesting.
Yeah,
The more the better.
So we'll see how that evolves. I think in the beginning it will be fairly static, but sort of a representation of what the experience that if you click enter, you sort of have an idea of what you're about to enter. And then over time, I think we can get more and more sophisticated. But at the same time, we don't ultimately want to be like all of WordPress either. So we have to figure out where we draw the line for how much we enable versus where it's better off for some creators to just move on to a more professional tool set to create the website they think is appropriate for attracting an audience to their experience.
I can see lots of work for machinima makers. Show the experiences, yes. Okay. Yes. Lilith Hart says, "I'm a scripting Dumbo." It's a confession. Will Sansar have an open API and support editor extensions like Unity's Playmaker, which is a visual scripting tool? And she believes that would democratize Sansar development.
I don't know. First step is for us to just get C# out there so that people can script in C#. And then over time, I think we'll do more and more integration with external tools so that you can use professional IDEs, like whether it's Visual Studio or whatever, and sort of a clever integration so that you have like a true coding environment to be working in. And then what kind of flexibility, how can you choose what IDEs you want to work with? Visual scripting, and that's a beast in of itself. And that's, I think, it's beyond current thinking. So we'll have to think about, if you're using third-party tools that allow for some of that, that might work. But right now, we're not actively working on some visual scripting solution. That would be quite a ways down the road.
We've got another question that came up in chat. How does Sansar plan to combat griefing and trolling and even cheating in games? But the question says if Linden Lab make in-world games, and I'm guessing that the answer to that is that Linden Lab won't be making the games. Is that right?
Yeah, we're not in the bit. I mean, we will create some content, just like Patch's team does in Second Life today. Mostly we create those either to showcase what's possible, and it's kind of a combination of QA and showcase, so that we actually, they do a lot of work with experience keys to make sure that, it is working as it should. And it's also showing examples of what's possible to sort of, so I call them more like samples. And there might be some experiences like welcome areas and stuff like that where we actually want to continue to invest in. But generally, other than for purpose of showcases and testing, we're not in the business of creating content. That's all up to you guys to do. And we don't want to compete with you guys on trying to attract audiences to our experience versus yours. So, no, we're in the platform business, and we'll only do as much content as we need to sort of validate and showcase and examples and give people ideas of what's possible.
So
And what was the other part of that
Yeah,
question?
policing that.
Griefing
protecting
and all
against griefing and cheating and
Yeah, ultimately we need to give tools to experienced creators to easily manage be silent you, disappear you, go away you, and then also more different levels of trust that you could set. Maybe that you can only enter my land if you have sort of the following information on file, so it's ultimately about us giving as much control as possible for the experienced creators to manage their experiences and communities, and at the same time try and find the right level where we don't stifle creativity because it becomes too hard to do things because of. And there's actually going to be some interesting. We have an upcoming summit for the Second Life, which we do. A couple of times a year, where griefing will be again a topic of what can we do to make it even better than it is today in Second Life. But ultimately, it's about providing the tools and the controls to creators and individuals to just hide and tune out and block and all those things. We can't be the one that's the single police force here. That just doesn't scale.
Right. One very quick question, and then I think we'll probably wrap this up. Someone has been asking that how can they put their name forward to be considered for alpha and beta testing for Sansar?
I don't know. We don't yet have like an open invitation sort of email or anything. I mean, people ping us all the time, and we're not yet ready to let a lot more people in. So probably, around June or just in advance of June, we'll probably start to allow people to somehow apply in some way. And probably the thing that helps us is to understand that this is a person that A, is willing to spend a lot of time, B, has the skills to create some interesting content and participate in sort of a bit of a rough road but I'm not sure exactly what that application process will look like. And again, by June, we're talking maybe hundreds of creators. And so the more skilled and the more devoted to helping us, make it great, the more likely you will be sort of let in. But I don't think we've exactly specified criteria or number of people or process for sort of applying, if you will. So right now it's pretty much people we know and trust, and
oh dear,
and maybe some strategic partners that are trying to do some really interesting things. But it's pretty early still. So. Quite a few more by June, and then more in July, and more in August, more in September. We'll keep increasing the number of people that can come in. And rather than having lots of people come in for 2 minutes and go, nah, not for me, we want people that are actually committed and have time to commit themselves. So it's not just, it's not just to entertain people's curiosity, but it's actually people that can commit to some level of engagement of helping us make it better.
Well, those early tests, they all need schnapps. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay. I was going to say we've had one from Felis Catnap, who has been here to make sure of getting his seat from about, I would say, 8 a.m. this morning, and has come through the whole thing. And has not so much a question, but I think I speak for everyone in saying thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come and talk to us. Much love. And also thank you for keeping Second Life alive through the tough economic times too.
I appreciate that, and it's my pleasure. And we learn, I learn a lot from these questions and from these interactions as well. So it's super valuable to us, and we look forward to doing these more of these over the year. And it might not be me every time. I think we'll swap some other people in. You've probably gotten enough of me by now, but we'll throw in some other players to come in and talk to you guys. And whether it's Danger or Björn or Oz or Pete or whomever it might be, Grumpity maybe. We'll figure it out. And to continue the dialogue. And yes, we're still very committed to Second Life. Sansar will take a while to be able to accomplish a lot of the really cool stuff that's happening in Second Life. Will take Sansar quite a while to sort of be able to reach that level of sophistication to be possible to do. So for many of you, Second Life will be the choice for quite a while, I think, and for some of you maybe forever, which is fine. And I feel really proud of what the team has accomplished over the last year. I mean, it's a smaller team that it's been in previous year, but I feel the team is actually getting more done. I think under Oz and Danger, the team has just accomplished a ton to make Second Life better this last year. And the team is super devoted and will continue to crank out improvements this coming year as well. So look forward to more goodness, and look forward to talking to you all soon again.
That's great. And as we're coming to the end of the show, just say thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, well done. And we also like to thank the people who've made this all possible, and the Lab Chat team, Linden Lab, and the people at the Lab Endowment for the Arts. Thank you all. Thank you, of course, to the residents of Second Life, especially those who sent in questions in advance, and everyone else who came here today.
Yes, I'd like to thank especially Blindman75, who, when we were having sound problems, leapt in to provide us with the system.
At the very last moment, yes.
Yeah.
Our knight in shining armour.
Yeah, definitely.
And if you'd like to see the show again, the video will appear shortly on the Second Life YouTube channel and on the Lab Chat website, as well as AView TV. And there will be audio highlights on the Drax Files Radio Hour podcast tomorrow already. And there will also be a transcript of the show on the website shortly. And you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and of course on our website at labchatsl.wordpress.com.
I'm getting a message in my earbud again that it's going to be a full transcript on the Drax audio files tomorrow.
Imagine that.
Not just highlights. So, and I'd also like to say, if anyone's taken photos, if any brave soul out there has taken photos, flicker them and send me the link, please. Let us know in Lab Chat comments so that we can use your photos. If you've got photos we can share to illustrate our articles. Thank you very much. Because until next time, it's goodbye from Lab Chat.
Goodbye and auf Wiedersehen.
Cheers, everybody.
And that's it. Lab Chat edition number 2. And we hope to come back with edition number 3. This is a format that really resonates. And I believe Ebbe is a really good, honest sport. I said this before. Just my impression, having met the man, that he is not beating around the bush. Any CEO of any company has to be a diplomat at some level, but I think Ebbe is a very honest diplomat, and that's great. So I hope you enjoyed this. Leave comments, get a discussion going. I'm in the middle. I wanted to mention that there was also a break between the video series, and I'm working very hard on the next video, which is episode 35, and it will be about Project Bento. Project Bento is the new skeleton. You know all this because you're listening to this show, so you're well informed. The new Second Life skeleton, and people are making amazing content. So we have footage in the can. There's still a few bits and pieces missing. That video will also be out on February 5th. Medhu Simoni from Medhu Animations. I have to give a shout out to him because he has created some awesome stuff, and so have others. I don't want to, dismiss them by singling out Medhu, but he's been creating some content that I think will knock your socks off. If you happen to know a content creator that is experimenting with Project Bento Skeleton, please put them in touch with me. I will get in touch with them and film stuff in World and splice it into this final product, which will be a behind-the-scenes documentary about how Project Bento came about, what it is, and why it is so great, and blah, blah, blah. A love fest in less than 5 minutes. Anyway, so I gotta go. Like I said earlier, I'll be getting lots of audio from Sundance, asking naive questions about why VR is going to be huge, why it will bomb. If I meet Palmer Lucky, who probably will be wearing flip-flops at minus 10 degrees, I will ask him why he's stealing my avatar's look and why the Oculus is so expensive. Okay? Have a great weekend, guys. And thanks for listening, and thanks for supporting this show. I love doing it, Joe loves doing it, and we will be doing it until we kick the bucket. I don't know. Probably. And once we kick the bucket, our avatars will continue the show, because by then we have downloaded our brains into our avatars. Maybe there'll be bots who are doing the show. Maybe there's a bot doing the show right now. Who knows? Who knows? Enjoy the weekend. Bye. Hey, yes, sir. Time to go home. Time to put it down. Time to get off of the one. Hey, yes, sir. That is what I'm gonna do.
The Drax Files Radio Hour with Jo Yardley is a weekly production of Basic Drax Entertainment. The show is supported by Stitcher, Carvel Design, Botanical, Death Row Designs, Fallen Gods Incorporated, What's Next, Avacon, and Landscapes Unlimited. Contact the show via Skype, Drax Files, Avatar Drax Files, or email radio@draxfiles.com.